Gang, this is Jeff Heath. Welcome back to the Vintage Workshop. We are back to show you the final results of rebuilding the Racine hydraulic utility saw, otherwise known as a power hacksaw. And when I last left you guys, I had just finished machining the guide bar that this upper frame assembly rides on, and I went ahead and put everything back together and pretty much thought I had it ready to go. And I'll tell you guys exactly what happened, which made this rebuild just a little bit more interesting, but in the end, all's well that ends well. But before I do that, and before I show you the saw running and how well it cuts, I wanted to go ahead and take a moment to thank you guys. I did not know how well a video from me would be received after having been gone for a year. The last year has been pretty crazy, both with work and with my own personal health level. I've got some major issues going on with my lungs I've been seeing a specialist about. So a lot of great well wishes in the comment section, guys. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It really warms the heart to see how many of you guys wish me well on that and asking questions about what's been going on in the shop. So I'm hoping to do a whole bunch more videos here and keep this thing, actually get this ball rolling again and see where it takes us. So without further ado, let's get back on the Racine saw. So I went ahead, I put everything back together, reassembled this entire frame assembly, and turned the unit on. I had to rebuild all the electronics because the previous owner had gutted it and just ran a single phase, put a single phase motor on there. And guys, if you're ever rebuilding a piece of equipment or switching from three-phase over to single phase, you really got to pay attention to the motor RPMs, because this is a slow speed, two-speed unit. It operates at either 100 or 140 surface feet per minute. It's geared for that all down through the gear train. There's two-speed pulley here that gets you the two-speed simply by changing the pulley. Takes less than 30 seconds to do it. But you cannot switch over to a single-phase saw at 1775 RPMs and expect the saw to A, work correctly, because you're speeding everything up by 50%, and B, have the engineering tolerances actually work for the saw. And I'm just guessing here, but I'm guessing that the ridiculous speed that this saw was probably running at is the reason why that 2-inch by 1-inch guide bar actually snapped in half. So enough of that. So I've got the proper size motor on here. It's a Baldor 1.5 horse. They came with 1 horsepower motors, but later on they actually upgraded to a 1.5 horse. So I know the saw is engineered and designed to have it. And you need a 1200 RPM saw to work with the existing drive system, and that's what I have. I got a 1200 RPM saw. It's a three-phase unit, and we went ahead and wired up the starter. Got a lot of help from the guys over at the OWWM side about making sure that I wired the sequencing correctly on the switches, because it just doesn't have a start-stop normally closed, normally opened station. It also has a safety cutoff when the saw is through the cut down at the bottom. It actually triggers a kick out, which flips that switch over and turns the saw off, and which you guys will see in a minute, returns it to its high spot. So let me go ahead and do this. I want to go ahead and show you guys the saw running. I'm going to be cutting. I've already got it set up. I've got the exact same 2.5 inch thick by 1 inch thick piece of mild steel, the remaining piece left over that I made the guide bar out of. So you guys saw the old Keller sawing and cutting that piece of steel. That took roughly about 8.5 minutes, thereabouts. I didn't time it exactly. I just used the wall clock. I'm not going to run a stop chart, or we're not running a race here, but I'm going to pay attention to the start and the stop. We're going to go ahead and cut, and then have no fear. I want you guys to stick around after, because I'm going to discuss with you the hydraulics. A lot of guys have purchased these saws, and there are several threads on them out on the internet, both on our OWWM website on the metalworking side, as well as even more about these hydraulic saws over on Practical Machinist. And I searched high and low and could find almost nothing discussing how the hydraulics work, what you need to do in case yours isn't working like mine wasn't, and I'll discuss what happened there, and I've got some pictures for you. And I want to zoom in and show you guys afterwards the hydraulic system very quickly. Don't want to bore you with a ton of words, but there are a lot of guys that want to get their saws back running, and I think I figured out this system very well. I completely disassembled this saw and the hydraulic system down to the last nut and bolt, took it apart, and some very interesting things were found, which you guys are going to see in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and get the saw running. Let's do the test cut so you guys can now see how it works. And then for those of you that want to stick around, go ahead and do so, because I'm going to discuss the hydraulic system, what happened, what I had to do to repair it, and best of all, in my opinion, showing you guys what I found in terms of how this thing works, so that if you guys get one of these and it's not working, you can go ahead and follow some very simple, easy steps for troubleshooting the hydraulic problems, as well as rebuilding the system and getting it back running without spending hardly any money at all. So let me go turn the phase converter on. I'll be right back, and we'll get this thing running. Okay, I changed my mind. I am going to run the stopwatch on my phone, because a lot of people do want to know how fast these cut compared to, say, a big, regular bandsaw. So I'm going to get this started, and let's go. See the hydraulic feed gauge? Noise as it bouncing on the floor. And it shuts off and returns. That's about 3 seconds slow, but who cares? Can you guys see that? 2 minutes, 17 seconds, about 18 seconds. It's almost not bad. That's more than 3 times faster. No, about 3 times faster than right around the almost 4. Actually, almost 4 times faster than the other saw. And also, I've got this set on the slow speed, and hydraulically there are 6 ranges. I've got it set on range 3, and the downfeed rate is at the low end, because I really don't want to push this saw yet until I learn it more. So it's capable of going a lot faster. I was just using it kind of at a moderate speed, below less than half of what it's actually capable of. It'll cut a lot faster, but I don't really want to push things until I learn the saw better. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and use a screwdriver as a pointer just to point out some of these things. For those of you that are still here, I wanted to show you what to do. So I went ahead and I got the whole saw put back together. I turned it on, it ran great. The blade and the frame slid up and down the guide arm, but the hydraulic feed wasn't working. So first thing to do is to, by the way, there was a lot of explicatives at that point because I was ticked. It took me, several days of several hours each day to go ahead and get it to that point. And I really didn't want to spend too much time rebuilding this whole thing. So anyway, started looking at the hydraulic system, and there's a hydraulic hose fitting on the back side. This is the outfeed side that feeds in. This is the entire hydraulic assembly right in here, okay? And this has a dial. You're looking at this dial. It's labeled 1 through 6. 1 is low, 6 is high, and you can actually dial up that pressure in order to cut faster or cut slower. So we're still working on finding the mid-range in terms of not wanting to bust things, but at the same time wanting to cut fast. So this hydraulic system, I went ahead and disconnected the hose on the back side. In order to get to it, you got to take the whole frame off again, the cutting frame, as well as the drive pulley for the frame, the eccentric, which creates the sawing motion. So I removed that stuff, I went ahead and disconnected the hose, turned the motor on, which is supposed to be pumping the hydraulics. No fluid coming out whatsoever, no pressure. Okay, fine. I shut it down. Started taking everything apart. First, I removed the upper frame, and I'm gonna zoom out here. Let me show you what I'm talking about first. Then I'll back out so you can see what I'm talking about. This right here is a cam that is operated right there. That cam is what pumps when it rotates through the drive system. It pumps up and down, and there's a hydraulic pump that is an oil pump, which is underneath this entire frame assembly found inside the bed. So let me back you out a little bit, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I went ahead and I removed this entire upper arm assembly. The main drive shaft is right here, which is connected to the chain. I had to completely take all of this stuff apart, and it's not just a matter of driving out a shaft. I had to look at it for a while because the cam is held in with a woodruff key that is hidden. You can't see it and you don't know it's there because there's no paperwork on the internet anywhere about how this thing was built. So you have to basically time the other. There's a belt drive in here, and that belt drive runs the coolant pump, which is found down in the base of the unit. It's got a belt on it. You have to time the spinning of that belt with lining up the woodruff key that is right next to it, which is inside the camshaft. You won't be able to see it. You just have to start tapping and driving out the main cylinder, the main drive shaft, and you will see a groove in the oil pump pulley, which is on the far side, over on that side over here on the back side, and you will need to line up the groove that's there, and then when you press out the shaft, the woodruff key has a place to go. I spent 4 hours messing around with this thing, putting pressure on it on the my regular ratcheting press, and then I put it over on the 20-ton press. I'm glad I didn't break anything. I didn't put too much pressure on it, but I mean, it literally came to a dead stop, and you really can't see anything. So you kind of finally figure out, oh, wait a minute, there's a woodruff key in here, and how I did that was looking around with a mirror. So you line up that woodruff key, press it out, and then everything comes apart nice. So I took this all apart, took the whole frame assembly, the hydraulics, everything completely off, and down underneath here is an oil reservoir. Here's the dipstick for it. Okay, and it holds the hydraulic oil, which is just regular 20-weight oil. And I used ISO 46, or AW 46, which is an ISO 100 20-weight oil. And you can use, almost anything. It's just a hydraulic oil system. Obviously, you don't want to use motor oil or no garbage like that, but a decent quality 20-weight hydraulic oil, non-detergent, is going to get you there. So once I took this entire assembly apart, I was able to get the oil pump out of the bottom, and it's held on with a capture nut that is a spanner nut. So you unthread that, it's all under pressure. So I did it backwards, I learned the hard way, but you want to press the shaft all the way out first and relieve the pressure off of the hydraulic pump because it's spring loaded, and by doing so you push that cam out of the way, then it comes off real easy. I fought it because I had pressure on the system. Once again, you learn as you go. So once you get that hydraulic pump out the bottom, you get a chance to look inside. And I'm going to include a photo here because the video footage that I took was terrible and nothing showed up. It was real blurry. So I'm going to insert a photo here so you can see what it is. Yep, you guessed it. The entire pump assembly was filled with corn, and there was a whole bunch of corn down in the hydraulic oil reservoir where you put the hydraulic oil where it pumps out. What ended up happening is whether a mouse got in here or whether the previous owner that I bought it from, who lived on a farm in corn country up in Wisconsin, somehow, some way, a whole bunch of corn got down in the oil reservoir, and the pump was strong enough to suck it up inside. The entire inside of the pump was completely locked up and unable to let the piston go up and down, and the spring was like, you know, jammed sideways, all because of corn. So I ended up taking it all apart, cleaning it apart, pulled it all out. There was no scoring on the cylinder, so I got lucky with that. Cleaned out all the corn. Then I went ahead and drained all the oil. It was filthy muck. There was a ½ inch of absolute muddy muck in the bottom of the reservoir. I cleaned all that out. I capped it. I filled it up with kerosene, and I took a paintbrush sprayer. Hang on, agitator. Let me grab it and I'll show you. The beauty of editing. One of these paint stirrers, I took this, and when you have this all off, there's a big open hole. I can't get my, it's not big enough for me to get my hand down in there, but I took this, put it on a drill, and then spun it at fast speed, and the kerosene filled in the reservoir, spinning with this, agitated it enough, and I did it 3 times, so I used a couple gallons of kerosene, and it completely dislodged all the muck and everything that was stuck to the sides of the walls, and it all went out the drain hole. So I did that 3 times, got it really well cleaned out. Then I flushed it out with regular oil just to get the kerosene out of there, because I didn't want the mix in, because that would thin the oil. So I ran some fresh, clean hydraulic oil through there to get the kerosene out. Then I plugged it up, filled it up to the correct height, and then I put the entire system back together, put the oil pump back together, paying attention to how everything went back, and that Woodruff key in the slot, etc., etc. I cleaned everything up pretty well, 90% job. Rewired everything back up because I had to take apart all the electronics, all the gears and everything. And once I got it all back together, bam, turned it on, and the feed started working. And after 3 or 4 cartwheels and a handstand, I was pretty happy about it. And, you know, here we are right now. So I wanted to cover that. I know it's long and boring and talking and whatnot, but how this works with the pressure gauge is you have feed control with this button up on top. This increases or decreases the amount of oil going through the system, and the actual pressure setting is regulated by this dial right on here. So right now I've got this set on 3, actually 4, and then I've got this set all the way down near the bottom. It's just a needle valve, and that needle valve runs to right here, and where that needle valve enters the hydraulic system, that controls the feed rate that the hydraulic system is pumping oil in there. So in the beginning, I'm going to go take it nice and easy. I'm going to get used to this machine, and once I do that, I'll be able to increase feeds and speeds. Okay guys, so that pretty much wraps it up here. I just want to thank everybody again. If you've lasted this long, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope this is going to help some of you that I know already own these, because I've had a few people email me already that have purchased one of these, got one sitting in their rat hole, and have no idea how to get it back running again. It looks like a fairly complicated, frightening system, but once you dive into it, it really isn't. So get after it. If any of you guys do get one of these and you have some questions about it, by all means, you can email me. I'll put my email in this video down at the bottom and leave it up there so you can get it. So feel free to contact me, because these are really great saws. I've actually cut some tube steel with it, some 3/8 inch thick tube steel. I've got, you know, you guys know I got my Monarch lathe back there. I got my Monarch lathe sitting up on 4x4s right now. Ridiculous, right? That machine is so awesome and rigid that it's still doing good quality work sitting on top of 4x4s. I bought some 4.5 foot long lengths of 7-inch solid steel rounds, and that's the reason why I went out and bought this saw, because my little Keller does not have the capacity of cutting that, and this saw is going to go ahead and lop off 8 4-inch thick risers for me, so that I can get that saw, or I'm sorry, the Monarch lathe leveled out. I'm also going to make some leveling feet for the Kearney and Trecker mill, as well as you can see right behind me, the Bridgeport mill. These metalworking machines are precision machines. It's not like woodworking where it kind of doesn't really matter. You work in a 1/16 of an inch, no big deal. With these guys, they got to be level in order to do their best quality work. So I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff going, and I needed this saw to be able to cut a lot of the steel that I have. And I've got some other metalworking projects coming up. We're going to build something real cool. That's all you get for right now, but it's coming up soon. And I don't want you to guys think that all of a sudden a woodworking channel on YouTube has turned into a metalworking channel. Not at all. Just before, up until now, I was doing this kind of metalworking. I just was never showing it to you. But this past year has been really dominated by a lot of metalworking because I've had to make a lot of parts for my business. So with that in mind, I've got an upcoming cabinet job coming very shortly. We're going to build some vanities. I'm going to show you guys how I go about doing beaded face frames and beaded frames for traditional cabinetry work. And we've got some other really cool stuff coming up shortly as well. So stick around. I'm going to produce as many videos as I can here in the nearest part of the future. And on top of that, I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for all the well wishes you guys have given me. It means a lot to me. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button, and feel free to share my videos on social media. I would really like to get this channel more recognized than just a few hundred views when I produce videos. So I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and we'll see you next time.